Dr. Samira Ghani hadn't always been taken seriously. 3 years ago, her detection of unusual radiation patterns in the upper atmosphere had been dismissed as equipment malfunction. 2 years ago, her theory about quantum disturbances suggesting cloaked objects in orbit earned her ridicule from the scientific community. 1 year ago, when she presented evidence of artificial materials not matching any known Earth composition, the military finally started listening. Now she stood in a reinforced underground facility beneath Cheyenne Mountain, surrounded by generals, intelligence directors, and science advisors from 27 countries. Behind her, suspended in a containment field, hovered the sleek obsidian craft they had captured last night. "The pilot?" asked General Wei, her expression unreadable. "Alive, sedated, and secure in Medical Bay 3. Samira replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Physiologically fascinating. Exoskeletal structure with internal gill-like respiratory system. Appears to communicate through both vocalization and some form of electromagnetic signaling we're still working to decipher." The room fell silent as satellite imagery appeared on the main screen. Massive objects, previously hidden behind Jupiter, were now moving inward through the solar system. "How many?" asked President Okonkwo. 83 vessels detected so far, Samira replied. "Based on their propulsion signatures, we estimate arrival within 36 hours. Admiral Nakamura stepped forward, his weathered face grim. "And you're certain the countermeasures will work?" Samira nodded to her chief engineer, Dr. Patel, who activated a simulation on the secondary display. The alien scout ship uses a multiphasic shield modulation that shifts every 2.7 seconds. We've identified the pattern and developed an electromagnetic pulse sequence that exploits the millisecond vulnerability between shifts. In our controlled tests, it creates a cascade failure in their defensive systems. Tests on recovered technology are one thing, the Russian defense minister interjected. Will it work on their warships? The scout ships database suggests their entire fleet uses standardized defensive protocols, Samira answered. Architectural efficiency is apparently a cornerstone of their military doctrine. It's their strength, and now their weakness. General Santos of Brazil shook his head in disbelief. So we're betting the survival of our species on the hope that an advanced alien civilization never thought to diversify their defensive systems. No, Samira corrected him. We're betting on humanity's greatest advantage. They don't know we're waiting for them. She brought up the final slide, showing deployment plans for the modified weapon systems. They expect to find a primitive, disorganized planet ripe for conquest. Instead, they'll encounter a unified defense prepared specifically for their weaknesses. As the military leaders began coordinating global response strategies, Samira stepped away to the observation window overlooking the alien craft. Her assistant, Dr. Lai, joined her. "You look troubled," Lai observed. "All those years studying the stars, hoping to find intelligent life," Samira said quietly. "I never imagined first contact would be like this." Lai placed a hand on her shoulder. "Perhaps it's fitting. Humanity has always advanced most rapidly under pressure." The facility's alert system suddenly blared. Lieutenant Commander Jackson rushed in, tablet in hand. "Dr. Ghani, the alien pilot, its vital signs are spiking. Some kind of distress signal is emanating from its neural pathways." Samira's eyes widened. "They know we have one of their scouts. Revise arrival estimate. They'll be accelerating now." As she hurried toward the medical bay, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. Humanity had hours, not days, to prepare for the greatest fight in its history. But unlike the countless civilizations that had fallen before them, Earth would not be caught unprepared. Captain James Chen's F-35X streaked through the dawn sky, leading Thunderbolt Squadron toward the burning atmosphere, where Vraxian dropships punched through like meteors. His aircraft vibrated as the hastily installed countermeasure pods hummed to life. "Thunder lead to all pilots," he transmitted, voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. "Remember your training. Lock targeting systems at the exact moment shield cycle. You'll have a window of 0.7 seconds. "This is insanity," Lieutenant Rodriguez muttered over the comm. We're flying 4th-generation fighters against alien warships. Retrofitted 4th gen, Chen corrected her, allowing himself a tight smile. With 5th-generation alien tech. The first wave of Raxian ships emerged through the cloud layer, sleek, predatory vessels that moved with impossible speed. Chen's tactical display counted 23 of them, spreading out in standard combat formation, exactly as the captured pilot had described. Thunder Squadron, execute pattern Epsilon. Chen banked hard, watching his squadron split into 3 groups, executing the maneuver they'd practiced for 18 straight hours. The Vraxian formation responded predictably, shifting to engage the largest group. Tactical predictability, another weakness Dr. Ghani had identified. Chen's targeting computer chimed as his weapons locked onto the lid Vraxian ship. Wait for the shield cycle, he reminded himself, watching the countdown on his HUD. 3, 2, 1. Fire. 6 American fighters launched modified missiles simultaneously. The Vraxian shields, momentarily phased for recalibration, allowed the projectiles through. Explosions blossomed against the alien hulls, the specialized warheads delivering precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Direct hits on all targets. Rodriguez shouted. Shield systems failing. Chen didn't have time to celebrate. Second volley, conventional warheads. The crippled Vraxian ships, their defensive systems in cascade failure, couldn't evade the barrage of standard missiles that followed. 3 alien vessels spiraled toward the Atlantic, trailing smoke and debris. Chen's radio crackled with transmissions from around the globe. Chinese fighter squadrons reporting successful engagements over the Pacific. Russian missile batteries destroying dropships attempting to land in the Urals. Brazilian interceptors protecting the Amazon command center. Thunder lead, this is home base, came Dr. Ghani's voice. Status report. 3 confirmed kills, 6 damaged and retreating, Chen reported, banking his aircraft to pursue a listing Vraxian ship. Countermeasures working exactly as you predicted. In the underground command center, Samira Ghani watched the global tactical display with equal parts hope and disbelief. 63 Vraxian vessels had entered Earth's atmosphere. 27 already confirmed destroyed or disabled. Another 15 retreating to orbit with significant damage. It's working, General Wei breathed beside her. We're actually winning. For now, Samira cautioned, they'll adapt. We need to secure more of their technology before they modify their shield frequencies. On her secure tablet, data streamed in from battlefield collection teams already moving to retrieve debris, and, if possible, intact systems from downed alien craft. Engineers worldwide stood ready to analyze and reverse engineer anything recovered. The captured Vraxian pilot, now conscious and secured in an interrogation chamber, watched the battle telemetry with multifaceted eyes that couldn't hide his shock. Impossible, he chittered in his native language, the translation software rendering his words with mechanical precision. You're a pre-spaceflight species. You should be defenseless. Dr. Miguel Santos, the xenolinguist monitoring the interrogation, leaned forward. Why did you attack us? The alien's mandibles clicked in what the scientists had identified as their equivalent of derisive laughter. You were simply next on our expansion route. Another primitive world to be harvested. A miscalculation, Miguel noted calmly, pointing to the display showing another Vraxian ship exploding over Moscow. Perhaps the greatest your empire has ever made. Above them, Captain Chen banked his fighter toward a fresh formation of alien dropships, his squadron falling into perfect position behind him. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but humanity had already rewritten the rules of engagement. The Tokyo Advanced Research Facility had transformed overnight from civilian innovation hub to military development center. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura moved between workstations where engineers disassembled components from a damaged Vraxian power core. 3 days ago, these scientists had been designing consumer electronics. Now they were reverse engineering alien technology. The efficiency is remarkable, Nakamura muttered, examining a crystalline structure under a scanning electron microscope. Their power cells operate at nearly 98% conversion, compared to our best at 40%. His colleague, Dr. Fatima Rahman, uploaded another set of schematics to the Global Research Network. The Mumbai team is already fabricating prototypes based on our morning transmission. They believe they can integrate the power regulation system with our existing weapons platforms. Across the world, similar scenes played out in hastily converted facilities. Automotive factories retooling to produce defense systems. Pharmaceutical labs synthesizing compounds to counter alien biochemical weapons. Computer science departments worldwide working in shifts to crack the remaining encryption in the Vraxian communication protocols. The captured Vraxian scout, now officially designated as Specimen Alpha, but informally called Alex by his human handlers, watched Dr. Ghani approach his containment cell. Despite his alien physiology, she could read confusion in his posture. "I have questions," Alex said through the translation device. "My neural link to the collective is severed. I cannot sense the battle outcomes. Have we conquered your world yet?" Samira activated a display panel, showing live feeds from orbit. The remains of destroyed Vraxian vessels drifted against the backdrop of Earth. Not exactly. Alex's compound eyes focused on the imagery, mandibles clicking in what the xenobiology team now recognized as a stress response. Impossible. We studied your civilization for 30 cycles. You are divided by borders, ideologies, resources. You should be fighting among yourselves for our favor. A common misunderstanding about humans, Samira replied, bringing up additional screens showing the global collaboration network. Scientists from former enemy nations sharing discoveries. Military forces that once targeted each other now coordinating defensive strategies. We're competitive, yes. Divided, certainly. But threaten all of us, and those differences become secondary. She approached the transparent barrier between them. You're not the first to make this mistake. We fought ourselves for millennia. Those experiences prepared us for you. In Bangalore, a team of programmers led by Vikram Patel celebrated a breakthrough. Their adaptive algorithm had just decrypted another layer of Vraxian tactical communications. The youngest team member, Ananya Sharma, a 22-year-old prodigy, had recognized patterns that senior cryptographers had missed. It's based on mathematical constants, she explained as government officials rushed to broadcast the discovery. But not universal ones. Their numeric system prioritizes base 8 calculations tied to their biology. 8 appendages, 8 neural clusters. Once I stopped thinking in human mathematics, the pattern emerged. Within hours, military forces worldwide updated their electronic warfare systems with the new decryption keys. Another Vraxian advantage neutralized. In Rio de Janeiro, fighter pilots trained in simulators programmed with data from the first engagement. Major Isabella Santos coached her squadron through evasive maneuvers that exploited the blind spots in Vraxian targeting systems. They rely on predictive algorithms, she explained, guiding a pilot through a corkscrew maneuver that baffled the simulated alien weapons. Their combat doctrine assumes rational opponents who follow optimal flight paths. So we'll be irrational. As night fell across different continents, humanity continued its frantic work. Scientists caught moments of sleep at their workstations. Military personnel rotated through brief rest periods. Civilian volunteers delivered food and supplies to research centers. No one had ordered this global mobilization. No single leader directed it. Like antibodies responding to an infection, humanity had instinctively organized to counter the existential threat, proving in action what Alex had failed to understand from observation. Humans didn't need unified government to act with unity of purpose. Commander Elena Vasquez floated through the darkened corridor of the Vraxian command cruiser, leading a 12-person boarding team assembled from special forces units across 7 countries. The makeshift squad had been training together for just 72 hours, yet moved with coordinated precision that belied their recent formation. "Junction ahead," whispered Lieutenant Akira Tanaka, the team's navigation specialist. Alien life signs detected in the chamber 20 meters starboard. Elena signaled with hand gestures refined from multiple Earth combat traditions, directing her team to split into 3 fire teams. The Norwegian twins, Eric and Sven Larsen, former oil rig divers turned special operators, took point with modified harpoon guns that fired electromagnetic disruptors, technology that hadn't existed a week ago. "Remember," Elena subvocalized through their encrypted comms. "We need the navigation core intact. All other systems are secondary objectives." The Vraxians had expected humans to fight like Vraxians, in rigid formations with predictable tactics. They hadn't prepared for the hybrid fighting style Elena's team employed. When the first alien security detail rounded the corner, they encountered not a traditional military unit, but something entirely unpredictable. Sven fired his disruptor, temporarily paralyzing the lead Vraxian's exoskeletal mobility systems. Before the alien could recover, Corporal Maria Santos, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu champion before joining the military, used the zero-gravity environment to execute a modified flying armbar that incapacitated the creature despite its superior strength. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Colonel Adebayo from the Nigerian Special Forces deployed a sonic weapon tuned specifically to Vraxian auditory sensitivity ranges, disorienting the remaining security team. The corridor was secured in 17 seconds, with minimal damage to the ship's systems. "Command, this is Boarding Team Alpha," Elena reported. "First checkpoint secure. Proceeding to Navigation Center." On Earth, in the hastily established orbital command center beneath the Swiss Alps, General Wei monitored the operation alongside Dr. Ghani. Holographic displays showed the positions of the 3 captured Vraxian vessels that human pilots had somehow mastered in days, not the years such adaptation should have required. "The second wave is accelerating," a tactical officer announced. "Estimated 500 vessels entering lunar orbit in 20 minutes. We turned to Samira. "Will Commander Vasquez's team secure the navigation data in time?" "They have to," Samira replied, studying the deployment pattern of the incoming Vraxian fleet. "Without those navigational algorithms, our countermeasures will be useless against so many targets." Back on the Vraxian cruiser, Elena's team encountered heavier resistance as they approached the navigation center. The aliens had realized the humans' objective and concentrated their defense accordingly. "We need a diversion," Elena decided, assessing the situation. She turned to Captain Dmitry Volkov, former Russian Spetsnaz. "Remember that crazy tactic you suggested during training? The one I said was too reckless." Dmitry's scarred face broke into a rare smile. "The Cossack Gambit? You said it violated 12 different tactical doctrines." "It does," Elena affirmed. "That's why they won't expect it." Minutes later, as Vraxian security forces responded to multiple hull breach alarms triggered by precisely placed microexplosives, Elena and 3 specialists slipped into the unguarded secondary entrance to the navigation center. The alien technicians inside, distracted by the apparent catastrophic systems failures throughout the ship, never saw the humans until it was too late. "Navigation core secured," Elena reported, watching as Lieutenant Tanaka downloaded the precious algorithms. "You were right about the secondary access point, Dr. Ghani. Their ship design prioritizes efficiency over security redundancy." In the command center, Samira allowed herself a moment of hope. "Transmit the data immediately, Commander. We have less than 12 minutes to reconfigure our defensive grid." As the precious targeting data streamed to Earth, Grand Admiral Zexthal watched with mounting horror as his supposedly impenetrable command cruiser fell to a handful of primitives. These humans weren't just defending. They were taking the fight directly to the heart of his fleet. Dr. Miguel Santos lay on the medical gurney, surrounded by a team of neuroscientists, engineers, and medical personnel. Electrodes dotted his shaved scalp, connecting to a modified version of the captured Vraxian neural interface. The alien device, designed for the collective consciousness of the invaders, had been painstakingly reconfigured for human neural patterns over 72 sleepless hours. "Your brain scans show elevated stress levels," Dr. Katsumi Tanaka observed, checking the monitors. "We can still abort if you've reconsidered." Miguel shook his head, eyes fixed on the ceiling. 2 weeks ago, he'd been researching cognitive linguistics at the University of Barcelona. 1 week ago, he'd watched a Vraxian bombing run obliterate his apartment building, killing his wife and daughter while he was away at a conference. The hollowness inside him had transformed into resolute purpose. "Their neural network is their greatest strength and most critical vulnerability," he replied. "If this works, we save millions of lives." Dr. Ghani stepped forward, her face etched with concern. The simulation suggests a 70% chance of success, but we don't fully understand the long-term effects on human consciousness. The Vraxians are deploying psychological warfare broadcasts across all frequencies, Miguel countered. People are losing hope. We need to counter now, not after more perfect testing. The procedure began. As the interface activated, Miguel's consciousness expanded beyond his physical form. He felt the alien network, cold, orderly, mathematical, attempting to assimilate his thoughts into its collective pattern. Instead of resisting, he did something the Vraxian hive mind had never encountered. He surrendered completely. But a human mind surrendering is not a mind submitting. Miguel allowed his consciousness to flow into the network, carrying with it everything that made humanity unique: contradictory emotions, illogical connections, creativity, humor, metaphor, and most devastatingly, imagination. In orbit, aboard the Vraxian command vessels, alien crews suddenly ripped away their neural links, shittering in distress. Their collective consciousness, accustomed to ordered information exchange, faced a tsunami of human cognitive patterns it could not process. A Vraxian weapons officer experienced the concept of ironic humor for the first time, understanding simultaneously that something could be both true and untrue, serious and absurd. The paradox crashed his neural functions. A navigation specialist received Miguel's memory of standing in Barcelona's Sagrada Familia, experiencing human appreciation for beauty with no practical purpose, a concept so foreign that her exoskeleton convulsed in confusion. Most disruptively, Miguel shared his grief, the raw, overwhelming human emotion of personal loss. The Vraxians, who experienced death as mere statistical adjustment, had no defense against the tidal wave of human mourning. Across Earth, millions watched their screens as Vraxian vessels suddenly broke formation, their carefully coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. Some ships fired on each other. Others began erratic maneuvers that defied tactical logic. In the command center, Dr. Ghani watched the monitors tracking Miguel's vital signs. What's happening? Dr. Tanaka studied the neural pattern displays with astonishment. He's not just disrupting their network, he's reprogramming it, introducing concepts they have no framework to process. On screens worldwide, the Vraxian psychological warfare broadcasts that had shown simulations of Earth's destruction suddenly switched to a jumble of images. Renaissance paintings, children's cartoons, scenes from horror movies, mathematical equations, sunset photographs, all flashing at disorienting speed. The aliens' attempt to weaponize humanity's fears had been turned against them, transforming into a chaotic display of human creativity that their ordered minds couldn't comprehend. In the medical bay, Miguel's body convulsed as the interface began to overheat. Alarms sounded as his heartbeat accelerated dangerously. "Pull him out," Dr. Ghani ordered. "Not yet," Miguel gasped, blood trickling from his nose. "They need to understand one more thing." Into the Vraxian collective consciousness, he projected humanity's most powerful concept: hope in the face of impossible odds. Grand Admiral Zexthal stood on the command deck of the flagship Inevitable Conquest, his exoskeleton rigid with fury and disbelief. The tactical display before him showed a disaster unfolding. His perfectly synchronized attack formation had disintegrated into chaos after the human's neural intrusion. "Status report," he demanded, his mandibles clicking with suppressed rage. Fleet Commander Vexcor approached cautiously. 37% of our vessels have severed connections to the battle network. Another 22% report critical neural interface failures. We've lost effective command control over more than half the armada. "Impossible," Zexthal hissed. "How could primitives who only discovered radio a century ago penetrate our neural defenses?" "Unknown, Admiral," the science officer replied. "But intelligence has uncovered disturbing information. The humans have established self-sustaining colonies beyond their homeworld." The holographic display shifted to show human outposts on Mars and their moon, asteroid mining operations, subterranean habitats, construction facilities. Zexthal's compound eyes narrowed as he processed the implications. How long have these installations existed? Some appear to have been established within days of our arrival, the intelligence officer reported. Others show signs of hasty conversion from scientific outposts. They're expanding at an alarming rate. Zexthal clicked his primary appendages in the Vraxian gesture of profound concern. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that responded so rapidly to existential threat. Most civilizations paralyzed themselves with political indecision or wasted precious time in religious contemplation when faced with superior forces. His tactical display chimed with an incoming transmission from the War Council. The hologram of High Commander Zex Mortha materialized, her ancient exoskeleton bearing the ceremonial scars of 100 successful conquests. "Your progress is unsatisfactory, Admiral," she stated without preamble. "The Council has unanimously authorized deployment of hemisphere sterilization protocols. You will cleanse half the planet immediately, leaving sufficient resources intact for eventual harvesting." Zexthal hesitated, an unprecedented reaction in his long military career. "High Commander, I must respectfully request reconsideration. Our intelligence suggests—" "Your intelligence has proven woefully inadequate," Zex Mortha interrupted. "This primitive world should have fallen within hours. The longer we delay, the more resources we expend. The protocols will commence in 30 time units. The Council has spoken." After the transmission ended, Fleet Commander Vexcor approached. "Admiral, there is something else you should see." The display shifted again, showing intercepted human communications about something called mutually assured destruction, a concept foreign to Vraxian military doctrine. Humans had apparently developed their weapons philosophy around the principle that if destruction was inevitable, they would ensure their destroyers perished as well. Analysis indicates high probability that humans have loaded their Mars and lunar colonies with planet-killer-class weapons, Vexcor continued. "If we deploy sterilization protocols against Earth, their colonies will likely launch immediate counterstrikes against our home systems." Zexthal's exoskeleton froze as the implications became clear. The Vraxian Empire had always relied on overwhelming technological superiority and the certainty that conquered species had everything to lose. These humans had rapidly ensured that scenario no longer applied. More disturbing still, 5 small human vessels had been detected jumping beyond the solar system using modified Vraxian drive technology. Their trajectory suggested they were headed toward systems where other subjugated species might be receptive to learning Earth's defense strategies. "A species willing to destroy itself rather than submit," Zexthal murmured. "We have no tactical doctrine for this." For the first time in his 3 centuries of military command, Grand Admiral Zexthal confronted a genuinely novel situation. A supposedly primitive species that might actually defeat the undefeated Vraxian Empire. The realization sent tremors through his exoskeleton. "Delay the sterilization order," he commanded. "Open a secure channel to their command. I wish to negotiate." The neutral vessel hung in space between Earth and the Vraxian flagship, a hastily converted science station now serving as humanity's first diplomatic platform. Dr. Samira Ghani stood alone in the conference chamber, her reflection mirrored in the polished obsidian table. 14 minutes until the Vraxian delegation arrived. General Wei's voice came through her earpiece. "You don't have to do this alone. We can send military representatives." "No," Samira replied firmly. "Their cultural data suggests they respect scientific authority over military. Besides, they've seen what our military can do. Now they need to understand our capacity for peace." The chamber's lighting shifted as the Vraxian shuttle docked. Samira straightened her shoulders, touching the small translator implant behind her ear, a device that didn't exist 3 days ago, created from reverse-engineered alien technology. The delegation entered. Grand Admiral Zexthal towering over 2 meters tall, his iridescent exoskeleton bearing the ritual scars of countless victories. Behind him, 3 Vraxian commanders, their postures radiating tension evident even to human eyes. Samira noted their subtle mandible movements, the expressions her xenobiology team had identified as surprise when she remained standing instead of assuming the submissive posture expected from representatives of conquered worlds. "You stand before the might of the Vraxian Empire," Zexthal began, the translator rendering his chittering speech into precise English. Your resistance has been notable. However, prolonging this conflict serves neither our interests nor yours. The subharmonic frequencies in his speech, inaudible to normal human hearing but captured by Samira's enhanced implant, revealed hidden communications between the Vraxians. She is alone. This suggests either arrogance or confidence we cannot comprehend. Before we begin, Samira replied in perfect Vraxian speech, watching their compound eyes widen at her command of their language. I should inform you that we've transmitted the specifications for your planet-killer weapons to every human outpost. She placed a data crystal on the table as the alien's mandibles clicked in alarm. This contains our terms, along with evidence that 3 other species you've conquered are preparing simultaneous rebellions based on our defense strategies. Zexthal's exoskeleton stiffened in the Vraxian expression of shock. Impossible. You could not have contacted the subjugated worlds. The distances. We use your own communication relays, Samira interrupted. Your encryption was impressive, but not unbreakable. Did you think we would limit ourselves to merely defending our planet? Humanity has always excelled at turning defense into counterattack. She activated the table's holographic display, showing Vraxian colony worlds where resistance movements had already begun implementing Earth's defensive innovations. Your conquest model relies on isolation, ensuring subjugated species never communicate or coordinate. We've broken that model. The subharmonic chatter between the Vraxians grew frantic. Verification confirms her claims. The Diraxian system reports uprising. The Kaltaran detention colonies have gone silent. Zexthal's primary manipulators twitched toward his ceremonial weapon, then stopped. You understand that the War Council has authorized planetary sterilization protocols. We do, Samira nodded calmly. Just as you now understand that such an action would trigger immediate countermeasures from our off-world colonies against your home systems. The concept we call mutually assured destruction. An elegant balance, wouldn't you agree? She slid the data crystal closer to him. Or we can choose another path. These terms outline a peace treaty acknowledging Earth's sovereignty and establishing formal diplomatic relations with the Vraxian Empire as equals, not subjects. Zextal studied her with all 4 of his compound eyes. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever proposed equality. The audacity alone demanded consideration. Explain why we should accept equality with the species we technologically surpass, he challenged. Samira smiled. Because in 3 weeks, we've taken your technology, improved it, and distributed those improvements to every species you've conquered over centuries. Imagine what we could accomplish as allies instead of enemies. The Vraxian admiral's mandibles stilled as he processed a concept entirely new to his species. The possibility that conquest might be less advantageous than cooperation. 6 months after the attempted invasion, the planetary defense headquarters beneath the Himalayas bustled with activity. The cavernous main chamber, once a hastily converted military bunker, now gleamed with a blend of Earth and alien technologies. Holographic displays tracked the positions of the newly commissioned United Earth Space Fleet vessels as they conducted their first coordinated patrol of the solar system. Dr. Samira Ghani straightened her formal diplomatic attire before entering the conference room, where representatives from 7 species waited. The gathered delegates created a visual testament to galactic diversity. The towering, chitinous Vraxians, the crystalline Diraxians whose bodies refracted light in hypnotic patterns, the gelatinous Kaltarans who communicated through color shifts, and representatives from 4 other formerly subjugated worlds. Most remarkable was the presence of a Vraxian diplomatic officer, Senior Envoy Zexvalen, whose attendance would have been unthinkable half a year earlier. Admiral James Chen, promoted after leading Earth's fighter squadrons in the decisive orbital battle, nodded respectfully as Samira took her place at the round table. Its shape a deliberate departure from the hierarchical Vraxian design philosophy. The Interspecies Defense Compact founding document has been ratified by all 7 governments, Samira announced. For the first time in galactic history, we establish an alliance based not on conquest or subjugation, but on mutual protection and cultural exchange. The Diraxian representatives' crystalline form pulsed with blue light, their expression of approval. What the Vraxian Empire sought to prevent for a millennium has come to pass because of their own actions. The independence they feared is now realized because they chose Earth as a target. Zexbalin, the Vraxian envoy, clicked his mandibles in what humans now recognized as their equivalent of contemplative sighing. The War Council still struggles to comprehend the scale of this paradigm shift. 17 conquered systems liberated in 6 months. Our military doctrine obsolete. Our conquest model shattered. You must understand, he continued, addressing the entire assembly but focusing on Samira, that we still don't comprehend how you defeated us. Our technology was superior. Our military experience spanned centuries. Admiral Chen smiled, activating the display in the center of the table. It showed thousands of cultural artifacts, books like War of the Worlds and The Art of War, films ranging from Independence Day to Seven Samurai, military treaties, philosophical texts, and centuries of science fiction spanning every human medium. We've been preparing for you our entire history without knowing it, Chen explained. Every war taught us adaptation. Every disaster showed us resilience. And most importantly, he gestured to the vast collection of human imagination. We've been imagining this fight since before we had electricity. When you actually arrived, we'd already defeated you 1,000 times in our minds. As the meeting progressed to discussions of technology exchange protocols and defense standardization, Dr. Miguel Santos, now recovered from his neural interface experience but permanently changed by it, watched quietly from his observation post in the adjacent room. The neural scars from his connection to the Vraxian collective had left him with unique insights into alien psychology. They're still afraid of us, aren't they? Asked Dr. Lai, who had joined him. Miguel nodded, not of our weapons or technology, but of our unpredictability. To them, we're beautiful chaos, impossible to fully comprehend. Outside the mountain complex, Earth continued its transformation. Cities rebuilt with enhanced alien materials. Universities established xenobiology and exotechnology departments. Children played with toys inspired by the ships that had once threatened their world. Humanity had not merely survived. It had catapulted itself into the galactic community, forever altering the balance of power among the stars. The species that had nearly been just another conquest had instead become the catalyst for a new galactic age.